So some say that a hero can be measured by how impactful their rogues gallery is. And I think it's no accident that we become drawn into a protagonist's story by seeing the many obstacles that they have to face. And sometimes these obstacles can be from their darkest nightmares. So today, you all will be getting a glimpse of the world and the obstacles that Lady Death has had to face over the many years. What's going on, everyone? This is Ace, and welcome to The Reckoning. And as you probably saw by the title here today, we are going to be covering the many villains that Lady Death has had to fight. Now, this doesn't include all of her villains, and while I didn't place them in any specific numerical order, I did want to definitely mention some of these here because I do believe that they are definitely some of the more memorable fights that she has had to overcome. So, with that being said, if you like what we do here and you also are a fan of Lady Death, Purgatory, Evil Ernie, Coffin Comics in general, then feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, so you keep up with what we do here. Honestly, your support means so much to the channel and to me. So again, thank you so much for watching, and let's get into it. So, starting off, we have Reich. Now, Reich is a scarred, mutated Nazi who not only has been existing within Hell for many years, but has been cunning and ruthless enough to take over his own little territory within the realm, which he calls the Iron Dominion. It is a city full of factories and electricity combined with slave coops and laboratories. The stench of rusted iron and entrails engulf the city. Reich has spent years combining technology with black magic to create weapons and abominations alike for his own personal gain. His mission is to create an army that will allow him to take over Hell and wipe out Hellborn and demonkind from existence, as he finds them grotesque, and once he has full control of Hell, he will move on to Earth to begin the Nazi horror once again. Now, Reich would get onto Lady Death's shit list for one, being a Nazi, but two, because he has abducted a boy named Jake, who was known as the last innocent of Hell. This was because Jake was not condemned to Hell, but while still being alive, was brought against his will. Jake would befriend Lady Death on a previous adventure, but now finds himself in the hands of Reich. It's here we find out that Jake has technomatic energy within his blood, and Reich intends to use the boy's power to create his hybrid army. The hybrid would be Reich's personal army of experimental corpses made up of his prisoners that are functioning as soldiers and under his sole command. They have enhanced abilities such as flight and super strength. They are decked out in machine-like armor as well. Because they are simply the bodies of Reich's enemies, he can create an endless supply of obeying soldiers if given the chance. Reich would eventually decide to go through the hybrid process, turning himself into a monster-like figure. Now, besides these mindless experiments, Reich also controls a number of fellow Nazis that work for him in the Iron Dominion. One in particular is a woman by the name of Frau Vogel, a psychotic nurse during World War II that killed 99 children until being killed herself. She is personally responsible for torturing the boy Jake and extracting his blood in order to create the hybrid army. Next would be Reich, Reich's mother, who would torture and collect the body parts of prisoners, often leaving them alive while doing so. She is taken hostage by Lady Death and eventually killed to pay for her atrocities. Reich is a twisted fiend whose cruelty and conviction are immeasurable. He is sharp, calculative, and proves to be quite the foe for Lady Death and her team, but also is an example of how twisted and dreadful a place Hell can be. Insurrectos, the Walker, Lucifer's creation, locked away for eons deep within the earth. He is a being of such immense power, just his mere presence will spread psychosis to any humans that are near him. The psychosis will cause insanity and violent bloodlust, but could also trigger subjugation, where many will mindlessly be drawn to him. Insurrectos wants to create what he calls the Nihilus Engine, which essentially is a portal opener for him to travel to other worlds and dimensions so that he can annihilate life everywhere he goes. He wishes for the void, or for plunging worlds into the black, as he states. He detests the weak and is also not too keen on his father Lucifer. You see, he is aware of Lucifer being responsible for his creation, and that he was to be a world-ending weapon to give hell the upper hand against the forces of heaven. But for whatever reason, Lucifer decided not to go through with using Insurrectos, and then threw him away like a useless tool buried beneath the earth, and to be forgotten. He now wishes to be his own being and act on his own accord. It's important to note that upon his awakening, Insurrectos in some ways has a childlike simplicity to him. He has primitive instincts such as finding a mate to impregnate and give birth to his progeny. Ultimately, thus lust and underestimating those he deems as weaker than himself would be his downfall. Now, as mentioned earlier, he was made to find his brides and create the progeny, as this would begin the ending to life as we know it. Honestly, this whole concept, it kind of reminds me of the movie Ghostbusters, if you guys have seen that, where you had the two characters, the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, and they needed to get together in order to unleash Zool upon the earth. Oh, and as mentioned, this progeny that I keep bringing up, they are essentially the name given to Insurrectos' offspring. Thousands and thousands of demonic, grotesque creatures of all shapes and sizes and abilities. The artwork is quite striking. If anything, I almost wonder if there was any influence from the series Berserk as like the Apostles, because it's very much in that kind of grotesque manner. Now, it should also be noted that Insurrectos is not against killing his own children if he deems them unworthy or too weak. He would eventually mate with a powerful sorceress known as Atrocity. Originally, he was to mate with a trio of powerful beings simply known as the Trinity. He even referred to them as his brides, but they were destroyed by Lady Death, and so Insurrectos has not forgiven this act and immediately pinned Lady Death as his enemy. Lord Genocide, the Chaos Lord. Lord Genocide is an extremely powerful and ancient being. He is what is called a Chaos Lord, which is essentially one of the earliest beings to ever exist within the Chaos universe. In fact, he is so ancient that he predates the Big Bang and the universe's creation. He was not alone, as his brother God, or Jehovah, was also amongst the Chaos Lords, and who would eventually create Lucifer. This is why Genocide refers to Lucifer as his little brother. Genocide is one of the Chaos Lords that longs for the return of chaos, random, unpredictable darkness. He views this as the ultimate bliss and only true and real way of existence. He wishes to defy and destroy order, and he plans to invade Asgard and utilize the power of yet another Chaos Lord brother, Odin, to accomplish his plan and return all existence back into chaos. Lord Genocide himself has incredible strength, the ability to manipulate reality, as well as teleportation and telepathy. If that wasn't enough, he is essentially one with his planet that he created, known as Wraithworld. Yes, you heard me right. Essentially, when you pick a fight with Lord Genocide, you are fighting an entire planet. Wraithworld and all of its inhabitants are formless, shapeless monstrosities, destroying everything in their path. They have but two functions: to follow Lord Genocide's every command, and to destroy order and bring everything into chaos. Lord Genocide would mate with the being known as Antigone, who would birth their daughter known as Vex. Now, Genocide's weakness is that while his sole existence seems to be guided by a longing for chaos and the way things used to be, however, with his well-thought plans and creation of Wraithworld as well as an entire army ready for his every command, it would seem that order may have consumed him more than he realizes, and ultimately, this would be his downfall. Lady Death would clash with Lord Genocide during his invasion of Asgard, as she happens to also be present, finding more about her roots and how she has family connection to the Shining Realm. It's because of this that she will do everything she can to stop the mad Chaos Lord. The Trinity, a trio of supernatural beings with immeasurable power. Vinda, who controls the wind, Jorda, the earth, and Elda with fire. The Trinity are extinction-level forces of nature. They were summoned by a mysterious group called the Hellborn Sect to exterminate all life on Earth. The Trinity's incentive for serving the sect was that the sect were able to feed them angel's blood, or what they would call heaven's milk. This milk-like blood gave the Trinity a power boost high, but would also instill within them a craving for the substance, causing them to behave like crazed addicts. The Trinity would get more of heaven's milk each time they destroyed a major city. For every massive city that was destroyed, the Trinity would be fed the angel's blood. However,
This destruction of the specific cities also played a part in the Trinity's plan to summon an even more powerful evil being. As mentioned prior, the Trinity were destined to be Insurrectos' brides. They would have succeeded if not stopped by Lady Death and her team called the Sworn. The Trinity proved to be quite a challenge for the Sworn, including the likes of the Archangel Michael and Lucifer's daughter Lady Satanas. They are also immortal, quickly healing from any externally inflicted damage. So while the Sworn can team up and brutally weaken one of the Trinity, as long as her other sisters are around, then they can feed each other power and retain their immortality. With no real weakness in sight, Lady Death and the Sworn decide to hit the Trinity all at once. The Sworn channel every last bit of their energy and powers into the Magical Eye of Annihilation, a spell conjured up by fellow Sworn member Mr. Morrow, who is one of the most powerful sorcerers within the Lady Death universe. The spell blasts out and unleashes onto the Trinity. The Eye of Annihilation force feeds the sisters the combined power, causing the Trinity to be overloaded until their bodies are unable to contain the energy and disintegrate into dust.
Now that brings us to Leviatha, first wife and love of Lucifer. The snake that lingered near the tree of forbidden knowledge in the Garden of Eden, the flame-colored nymph who appeared to Icarus, persuading him to use his father's wings to fly near the sun. Even Orpheus sensed sweet breath upon his face just a foot from hell's exit, causing him to turn his head toward his lover Eurydice, thus losing her forever. This snake, this nymph, this breath is as infamous as she is cruel. The Chaos Lord, the all-seeing Leviatha, is hands down one of Lady Death's most diabolical foes. She would first take issue with Lady Death upon her resurrection during a troublesome time in hell. For you see, Lady Death and other demons and archdukes are now fighting for control of hell, as Lucifer is no more. This is hard for Leviatha to grasp, as she at this point still longs for the Dark Prince of Lies. However, once she comes to the realization that Lady Death is responsible for his demise, she does everything in her power to lash out and torment Lady Death. Besides her ability of flight, teleportation, possession, she also has the ability to trap souls within what she refers to as her void, essentially a construct of her power and energy where the encaptured are left in a vast darkness, allowing Leviatha, if she wishes, to uncreate them, or, as she preferably enjoys doing, breaking their spirit. Leviatha has been responsible for splitting the soul of Lady Death and Hope into two, banishing the Lady Death half into a pit of hell called Resignation, and leaving the human version of Hope to wander hell alone. Leviatha's hope was that this would crush Lady Death's spirit into feeling foolish, forever thinking that she could be more than just a scared girl who dared to challenge demons and chaos lords. Leviatha was involved in a prior war to that of the Judgment War, where she and her demon followers fought against the forces of both Lucifer and the forces of Lady Death for who would control the new hell here on Earth. The Chaos Lord showed how extreme her power could be, as she was able to shatter Lady Death's most powerful sword, Apocalypse. Leviatha is also responsible for taking the most from Lady Death, as she would devise a horrific plan that would lead to the death of Lady Death's lover, Azrael, the ex-angel of death, as well as abducting her children, and lead Lady Death to believe they were incinerated. No one has been able to cause this amount of grief to Lady Death, and it's reason enough to know when the name Leviatha is mentioned in the Chaos or Coffin universe, you know things are about to get serious. As powerful as Leviatha is, her weaknesses would most likely be her cherubs, as she has a soft spot for them, and they tend to be taken hostage from time to time and used momentarily to stop her plans. But more than this, her biggest weakness would be her love and willingness to forgive Lucifer, as he has betrayed her numerous times and is even the one responsible for locking her away for thousands of years. Purgatory, the vampiric goddess addicted to blood and power. Okay, so we all love Purgatory. You love Purgatory. I love Purgatory, if I may say so.
This powerhouse villain and rival of Lady Death is not just one of her more famous enemies, but also one of her most powerful, tenacious, and gorgeous, if I can fanboy out for a sec. Purgatory was one of the main pillars of the Chaos universe, and rightfully so. She was an Egyptian slave hundreds of years ago named Saqqara. She would be seduced by and fall for a queen of Egypt, only to be betrayed and left for dead. Fleeing for her life in the ancient desert, she would run into a being known as Wrath, promising her life and the power to take her revenge on the queen. If Sakara was of normal blood, she would simply have been a vampire, but because her ancestry is connected to that of the fallen angels, the vampire process took an unusual and monstrous transformation to her body, reflecting that of her bloodline. She is an extremely powerful being when compared to both vampire and demon kind alike, as she has incredible strength and speed. Some of her other abilities include her blood alchemy, where she can create projectiles, weapons, shields out of blood, as well as absorbing the blood of her enemies, which will allow her to also intake their knowledge and or essence. Her healing abilities are also incredibly fast, as she can reform her body as long as there is even a drop of her blood remaining, making her such a difficult opponent to keep down. She also has gargoyle-like wings, allowing her to fly. Purgatory almost needs her own video because we have barely touched the surface of her abilities, as she also has teleportation as well as the ability to possess and mind control her enemies, and the list just keeps going. Personally, I would highly encourage anyone curious to dive into her books. Ultimately, what I will mention here is that her purpose is to become a god of unimaginable power. She lusts for the blood of demons, gods, and chaos lords. It is both to satisfy her power craze, but also just her internal hunger. She is responsible for destroying Asgard and most of their kind. She is also responsible for killing most of the Roman gods and taking over a land of Necropolis. She has tried multiple times to absorb and kill Lucifer and gone to war with the vampire clans, leading her to face off with Dracula. Purgatory sees Lady Death as an obstacle that always gets in her way of obtaining her desired power, as time and time again she has had to taste defeat at Lady Death's hands, and that is enough to make sure Lady Death experiences the full fury of Purgatory. Pagan, Hell's Court Jester. Now, some of you may be looking at the individual before you and be in disbelief that this jester should be in one of Lady Death's most threatening villains. And if you are talking power-wise, fist and steel and all of that, then yes, Pagan wouldn't last very long. But that's exactly it. He doesn't need to. His cunning and cruelty are unparalleled. He is always 5 steps ahead of everyone, maniacally plotting, and he has no allegiance to anything but himself and his self-interest, not even to Satanus, who he is very close with. If the opportunity seemed ideal, he would betray even the father of lies. Pagan enjoys tormenting his victims and also loves a good disguise. Deceit is his comfort zone. He has betrayed friend, lover, and Duke of Hell alike for his own personal gain, and of course caused so much pain to Lady Death over the years. He is also resilient. He has been killed by Lady Death, ripped apart by Evil Ernie, and yet still manages to come back and cause more chaos. Little is known about the origins of Pagan, for he is older than even the oldest of Lucifer's dukes. Some say that he is one of the fallen angels, while others claim that he is among one of the first mortals to pass into hell. But it is doubtful that the truth will ever be known, for Pagan himself refuses to discuss the matter. His goal is the accumulation of knowledge and ultimately control of hell itself. He took the role of jester because it allows him free access to the courts of hell and diverts attention from his true ambitions. Astroth, Archduke of Hell. In the ancient region of Hell lies Androch, home to petty criminals and vagabonds. As legend goes, this village of idleness and sloth was built upon the body of a great Grand Duke, whose loyalty to Lucifer was unwavering. Now it was also stated that there would be a time of uncertainty, a judgment era within hell and beyond. It would be the signal for the final reckoning for all things. Realizing the vast implications, Lucifer, the father of all evil, made a pact with his most loyal duke, named Astroth.
Sleep, Astroth, and take part of my own power with you. And if the prophecy rings true, awaken and destroy my destroyer.
The prophecy would come to pass, as Lady Death would defeat Lucifer and have his presence wiped from hell. However, shortly after she was pushed out herself through the nexus of all things and sent on her odyssey throughout different worlds. It was at this time that Astroth, the Grand Duke of Hell, would erupt from his slumber and without hesitation begin his hunt for Lady Death, the one who destroyed his father. He would cross worlds, bringing death and the full power of Satanus' wrath to those who were merely in his way to reach Lady Death. Speaking of which, at this time, Lady Death had found a brief moment of peace living in a land known as Concordia, which reminded her of her own home when she was a mortal girl named Hope. The royalty of this land adopted Hope as their own daughter, and the kingdom welcomed her into their world. But I did say briefly, because it wouldn't be long before Astroth would burn the entire kingdom and kill those that showed Lady Death love. Ultimately, when being matched with Lady Death, she would defeat Astroth, but it wouldn't be the last we see of the character. He is a beast of a character encased in armor, and wielder of both sword and shield when going into battle. He is part demon, and his lower half resembles that of a horse, making him monumentous on the battlefield. Naturally, his speed is incredible, and even with his armor, his strength alone causes fear within his opponents. Besides his combat skills, he was given the power from Lucifer, which would explain his ability to incinerate victims with his eyes alone. It is a ferocious blast that leaves behind a gruesome scene. One thing to know about the Grand Duke of Hell is that the single most concrete thing about him is his loyalty to Lucifer. He will fight any warrior or angel, and even has gone after his own fellow dukes of hell for thinking of betraying Lucifer, the father of lies. He has battled the likes of Cremator, Lady Death's sister Vandala, and due to the lost wager between him and Lady Death, he at one point had to serve her against his own will, fighting against his own hell kind, and this giving him the name Astroth, the twice damned. Matthias, Lady Death's demonic father and sorcerer, the Demon King, probably the earliest source of Lady Death's suffering back in her youth when she was just a mortal girl named Hope living in medieval Europe. He was responsible for killing Lady Death's mother Marian's first husband, as they were part of the last remaining Viking tribes being hunted by Matthias's armies. He would then take Marian to be his own wife and become the father of Hope. Now, what is probably less often talked about is his background. He is the 666th generation descendant of one of the fallen angels of old. If curious about the fallen angels, I do talk about them in my previous video that I will link either down below or in the corner over there somewhere. But I will also be doing an entire video dedicated to them, so just be on the lookout for that real soon. Matthias was one of the most powerful sorcerers of the medieval era. Sorcery and longevity ran in Matthias's bloodline, and many of his family left their marks on the civilized world as they sought to accumulate power. Inevitably, this led to the conflicts between family members, and one of the most bitter of these occurred between Matthias and his grandfather, Merlin, when Merlin sought aid from hell in one effort to repel his grandson's territorial advances. Matthias did likewise, resulting in his deal to secure souls from the Dukes of Hell in exchange for power. Ultimately, Matthias became another pawn in Lucifer's grand scheme to manipulate Lady Death, and so his bid to usurp the power of the Prince of Lies in Hell was doomed to failure. A game done for the amusement of Satanas. Matthias, however, would prove time and time again to be resilient and wretched as ever, always coming in and out of Lady Death's life, trying to manipulate or destroy her. Even now, Matthias has found a way to be amongst the living once again, and is in charge of a global government-backed organization called Halo. They specialize in combining sorcery and science along with technology, and their top priority as of late is to wipe Lady Death from existence. And finally, we have none other than Lucifer, father of lies. So, we are finally here, the big baddie of the Lady Death universe, Lucifer, otherwise known as Satanas or the father of lies. No matter what his name is or what he goes by, he is not only responsible for so much of Lady Death's suffering over the years, but he is, in a way, responsible for her very creation. In his own sick, twisted way to strike back at God, he wished to take something innocent and good and turn it into a creature of darkness, leading him to the girl known as Hope. This decision would change everything forever. Now, while this list was in no particular order, I think it's fair to say that Lucifer, or Satanas, has always been the one. You know, think Batman and Joker, Spider-Man and Green Goblin, Spawn and Malbosia. Think this type of energy and level of threat when it comes to Lady Death and Satanas. Not only have I created 2 videos on him already on this channel, which of course, as I've mentioned before, I will link somewhere either down below or in the corner, but several of the villains on this very list are either creations of Lucifer or have relations with him. So Lucifer is a towering figure. Just the sight of him causes weary and anyone foolish enough to challenge him. He is the undisputed ruler of hell, and while he was gracious enough to divide the realm amongst his archdukes, he is the law. Combatively, he is a force to be had with his brute strength and abilities with the sword, which, mind you, Cremator the blacksmith of hell would have created for him. But Lucifer's more common way to defeat his opponents is by crushing their spirit. He loves to see them crumble and fall into the realization that they cannot succeed. He loves manipulating the mind, as he has done so to Lady Death, toying with her realities and perceptions multiple times. It should be noted that he is also the one who cursed Lady Death, stating that she could never return to Earth until all life was wiped out, which began her mission for Megadeth, and finding the perfect being she could enact it with, hence Evil Ernie. Satanus has also done this with Cremator, making the blacksmith his loyal subject. Satanus is a Chaos Lord and as such has immense destructive power. He is a master of disguise and finally has countless armies of hell at his disposal. If Lucifer had any weaknesses, it would be his pride. It was the downfall that corrupted the fallen angels and that got him thrown out of the realm in which his father, the Chaos Lord named Jehovah, banished him from. He was joined by his first love Leviathan, who we mentioned earlier on this list, and he is also preceded by his children, his son Thanatos and his daughter Lady Satanus. Now, Lucifer in the current Lady Death stories has been absent, not yet seen, until now. With the current run and the time of me recording this video in the year 2024, it's the 30th anniversary of Lady Death. And as such, Satanus is making his debut return to the Coffin Comics universe. While we don't know what his plan or intent, one thing can be certain: Lady Death will have to be ready to face the dreaded nightmare from her past. The one who spoke the words that would change her existence forever, deep within the caverns of hell. For you see, it was Lucifer who had first told her, in hell, power equals desire. And so with that, I think we're going to wrap up this video, and thank you so much for watching if you've made it all the way to this point. It was a pretty lengthy video, but honestly guys, I cannot express how much I'm excited to do this. I want to and love to share this world, these characters of both Chaos and Coffin, and ultimately just as we follow along in Lady Death's many adventures and stories. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the several characters that you've seen in here, and maybe even sparked some curiosity as far as the amazing battles and just constant obstacles that Lady Death has had to face over the many years. And she is not alone. Guys, this universe expands to characters like Hellwitch, Cremator, Evil Ernie, Purgatory, Chastity, all characters that I plan to cover in the near future. But at this point in time, I think I will try to wrap it up. I can't express how much it means to me that you guys are watching my content and for all the support that you leave. It really does help me out so much. Feel free to leave down below what was your favorite villain if you had one, or if there's a character that I did not cover, because mind you, this isn't even all of the villains or battles that Lady Death has had to face. So if there's somebody you want to see in a future video, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Or if you want to know more about any of these individuals, please let me know. I will be happy to make content. As always guys, I've been Ace, and thank you again for watching, and until next time, take care.